Well, welcome everyone to our Q4 and beyond roadmap webinar. Thank you so much for joining us and listening in. This is actually my favorite webinars to do and showcase all the amazing work that the teams have been working on. And I'm joined today with an all-star cast, Sundar, Eric, and Greg, each representing a core pillar of JumpCloud's Open Directory platform. My name is Chase, and I'll be your host as we dive into today's session. Quick disclaimer before we get started. Life, like software, ebbs and flows and changes. So just keep that in mind as we work through all these amazing features and we start to deliver that out into the consoles that you use every day. Before we dive in, I wanted to spend just one more minute kind of diving into, I mentioned Open Directory platform. Is that's the first time you're hearing about it? Just want to spend a moment. And when we're thinking about all of these features that are coming together and what we're going to be sharing here today and putting it all within context. Really, an Open Directory platform is our purposeful platform approach to work with everything that you have today and everything you will in the future. So as Eric dives into identities, you'll see a lot more identities flowing in and out of JumpCloud, Greg touching on devices and all the devices within your organization, and Sundar talking about not only data within JumpCloud, but data coming in and out of JumpCloud as well, starting to think about some of those signals. So that's just a little bit more context in terms of how we think about JumpCloud's Open Directory platform. And now into some recent releases. And if you're ever curious about what's happening, you can always hop into our console, hit resources, and then what's new. And so here's just a quick rundown list in case you haven't visited in a while. So we have a new integration with Namely, as well as generic OAuth 2 support, Radius for using Azure AD. Again, thinking about that Open Directory platform approach, some Linux hardening, commands queue, as well as some updating on patching notifications. And my favorite sneaky feature, which is switching between users admin login, is absolutely amazing, especially if you're going through some testing for SSO connectors, whatever that might be. And so now we'll dive into the fun stuff and really look at what's next as we approach everything within JumpCloud, looking at Q4 and beyond. And so with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Eric. We'll dive into identity access management.
Hey everybody, it's Eric Avigdor here with Identity and Access Management. And just a heads up, there's a whole lot of interesting, very cool things coming up in Q4. And you know, we're in October, so we're starting to think about 2023. So that's going to be exciting as well. I know Sundar and Greg have a very large amount of very interesting things for Q4, so let's get going. Within Identity and Access, we'll talk about identity management, access management, authentication, all of those really cool, interesting things. Let's start with our very first and very exciting password manager. I know many have been, anticipating and expecting and have a true need for a password manager within your IT ecosystem. If you think about JumpCloud as a central point for managing IT security and access to all IT resources, really the one single gap that still remained was password managed applications. So as we manage single sign-on to different environments, Ldap and Radius and SaaS applications through SAML and other federation protocols, password managed applications remain a gap both from a usability standpoint and from a security standpoint. We're releasing a really interesting password manager. It's a hybrid cloud-based password manager that is mixed with the ability to manage passwords on the device itself. So the credentials are locally stored, which provides you the best level of security mixed with the best level of user experience. And the fun part is it's not only managing your passwords, you can keep your payment cards and secure nodes and government IDs and many other options. We are in early access, and apologies for the noise in my background, which I hope my small Labradoodle will calm down, but it is in early access today, so if you'd like to sign up and try it out, that would be perfect. We are planning on bringing it out for general availability in the next few weeks, actually. So moving on from Password Manager, and I'm sure there will be many questions about that, we are significantly investing in our authentication portfolio in the second half of 2022, and moving into 2023, you'll see even a much deeper and richer investment in our mobile capabilities and in JumpCloud Protect specifically. One of the aspects in beefing up our authentication capability is actually allowing you to use biometrics as a means of logging on to more resources. So if you think about the JumpCloud platform today, you can use WebAuthn and different FIDO credentials and biometric credentials to log in many environments, but sometimes it is less clear for users how exactly to leverage different credentials in different scenarios. So what we're doing is we're cleaning that up. We're making it very clear on how a user can enroll in WebAuthn and FIDO tokens versus in options like Touch ID and Windows Hello, and that will make it much easier for users to use as a factor, as a secure factor when logging onto the user portal. Moving on, when we think about JumpCloud Protect, one of the things that we've been hearing a lot from customers and prospects is concerns about different types of factors and how they play into a security stance, into a security posture. We are continuously looking at how we improve security of different factors used to log into JumpCloud managed resources. And one of the nice additions we're bringing into JumpCloud Protect is the ability to identify where the push request is coming from. So if I am now currently in Cedar Park, Texas, and I'm trying to log into my user portal or into one of my SaaS applications, my push notification on my phone will actually show Eric is trying to log into ServiceNow or to Salesforce from Austin, Texas. What that adds is obviously the ability for me to identify a request coming in from a non-legitimate geography or area, and for me to be able to deny that request as a security measure. One of the things that we're adding for compliance, for driving ease of compliance for admins, is also showing device encryption levels, whether my device that is using Protect actually has encryption available, as well as a measure to improve ease of audit, etc., etc. Let's move on, because we have a whole lot of interesting things on auth that we want to talk about. So Ldap. Ldap is one of those resources that always was a slightly more difficult resource to log on to. So you have many on-prem Ldap authentication-based applications in your environment. And in the past, you used to use local credentials, passwords in order to log on to Ldap, and a few more legacy options. What we've done in the past is we've added the ability to use push authentication into Ldap, and what we've heard from customers is continuously the need in some specific cases to use TOTP appended after a comma in the password field within that Ldap application. So that is coming out in Q4. We will have the ability to add a one-time password based on TOTP as part of your ability to log on to an Ldap resource in addition to push. That basically, by the way, completes a long journey we have, which is the ability to authenticate to any JumpCloud resource with any type of credential. And you're going to see more and more types of credentials being added to that in Q4 and in 2023. Moving on to an additional type of credential that can be used. I think I should probably solve the barking noise in my background, and I apologize for that. So the interesting thing that's coming out in Q4 is the ability to, let me actually, Chase, let me ask someone to take care of that. If you can fill in for me for one slide, and I will be back once I have a bit less noise in my background.
Absolutely. So while we're managing environments and hybrid work structures, here we are today. But the next piece that we're really excited to talk about is certificate-based radius authentication. This has been a long-running ask for many different customers as you're starting to think about how can I ensure that as I'm logging into or kind of getting into the network, we have that additional piece there. And so the teams have been working tirelessly on looking at what a passwordless journey would look like. And really it starts within laying those certificates down as we get into the Radius network, right? And then that allows you to get on to Wi-Fi, VPN, all these other types of pieces. And so by thinking about, and this is also part of a longer journey, more certificates, how can we establish much more of a base in and around JumpCloud to making sure that you're getting onto the network in a very secure manner. So hopefully I didn't butcher it too bad for you, Eric, but if you wanted to continue on either on the certificate base or can carry on as well.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect, Jay. So we're adding certificates into our mix, right? And we're adding that specifically for Radius because we know that that is the best way to get to a passwordless experience, right? And this is just the beginning. We're planning on adding certificates across more options and more environments. And I'll give you a hint. We're planning to add that capability also as an extension of our single sign-on capabilities later in 2023. So this becomes actually a truly seamless path from the moment you log on to JumpCloud to the moment you get access to all different resources. Let's move on. Okay. Tying all of that together, we have our conditional access policy engine. And that is going to morph and change and be updated and enhanced in the next few quarters. And you'll see a whole lot of investment being put into that, because we know that conditional access truly is that point where we can balance security and user experience. And the reason I'm saying that is because multi-factor is great as a mean of increasing security, but you don't really want to enforce multi-factor on every single access attempt. You don't really want users to have to use multi-factor 20 times a day, because then it becomes an annoyance. And we know that when security becomes an annoyance, it is less frequently used. So conditional access, today we can support, as you know, 3 types of conditions. We have the ability to look at whether a user is coming in from a specific geography or an IP address or a trusted device. We also have the ability to authorize users based on specific groups and what they're allowed to access, but we're planning on adding conditions that tie much deeper into the state of their device that they're trying to access from. One of the unique, I'd say, differences and competitive advantages that JumpCloud has as a company is the mix that we have between managing identities, managing access, and managing devices. And by reading device posture, by having the ability to identify whether that device is encrypted, whether that OS version is updated and is one of the ones you allow within your IT organization, and many more posture conditions, you can now look at that device and say, am I willing to accept an access to this application from that specific device in its current state? This is going to be a really interesting investment area for us, both in the coming quarter and throughout 2023. Let us move on. And I believe we're moving into identity management. Yes, we are. So one of the themes that we have been investing in significantly lately is the ability to see JumpCloud as the central hub where identities flow into JumpCloud, identities flow out of JumpCloud, identities are provisioned, accounts are created outside of JumpCloud in order to automate and simplify the entire process of provisioning access to users to any IT environment. And we've been looking at the identity space from 2 separate angles. One is, how do we bring identities into JumpCloud versus how do we provision identities outside of JumpCloud to more environments? So from looking at this from the perspective of bringing identities into JumpCloud, the first thing we did is we have added the ability to not only bring in new users into JumpCloud from third-party integrations such as third-party directories or HR environments, we're now adding the ability to pull in user updates. So as user attributes, roles, and many other user-based identity attributes are being updated, we want admins to have the ability on the fly to pull in these updates through the admin portal, through APIs, through API integration for a more automated experience, but the ability to pull in both new users and updates to existing users. We're adding those in several different forms, and one of the things that we've been really focusing on lately is our HR integrations. We know that the synergy between HR environments and IT drives significant automation and a simplified access experience. We've added many pre-built connectors. We've enhanced our integration capabilities, which allow now also our customers to integrate even with identity sources, HR sources that are not pre-built in JumpCloud. One of the things we're working on now, and we are planning to bring to market somewhere, hopefully before end of the year, is the ability to import users from ADP. That maybe in Q4 might shift a bit into Q1, but we know that many customers have asked for that, and we've been investing in that. Another option that we have is we've enhanced our integration with Personio. That will follow the same path as all other HR pre-built integrations. We'll have the ability to bring in new users and updates and additional capabilities. But one of the interesting things that's coming soon is if today you need to walk into the admin portal and click import and manually import users, we're going to have the ability to schedule those user imports so that can happen on a recurring basis. Instead of you, our friends within the IT community, having to step into the admin portal and pull in these user updates, pull in these new users, you will now be able to schedule this as a recurring activity that happens on your behalf. Now let's see how that actually helps us with access, because that is not the only front that we're trying to automate access across. So moving on to groups, as you know, in order to simplify provisioning access and authorizing access across a company, users are put into groups, obviously, into functional groups, into vertical managerial level groups, into geography-based groups. And based on these groups, users are authorized to access different IT resources, SaaS applications or Radius networks or Ldap on-premise applications, and more. What group membership is capable of today within JumpCloud is not only the ability to authorize users through group membership onto IT resources, but JumpCloud also suggests to you that a new user has changed, maybe some attribute has changed because the user has moved from an engineering group to a sales group, and it will suggest, based on logic that you define, it will suggest changes in group membership. So JumpCloud today behaves as your advisor. What we're adding is the ability to automate that decision. And obviously, you may not want to automate every single group membership decision, which is why we're allowing the granularity of deciding group by group which one of those will be a suggestion to you as an advisor versus which one of those will be a fully automated action, which takes action based on rules that you define. So you could say, if a user moves from the engineering group to the sales group based on attributes, immediately authorize that user or bring that user into the sales group, which means eventually authorize that user on Salesforce potentially.com, right? So that is one thing that we're going to add. Once again, you'll have the granularity to choose when to use that and when not. And one of the additional things that, in the context of group membership that we're adding is truly for those environments that are integrated with Azure AD, we are going to allow users and admins to export user groups, not only users, but user groups as well on Azure AD integrations. And finishing up with my last slide on that third access. So we talked about bringing identities into JumpCloud, simplifying that. We talked about provisioning access using group membership. Now we're talking about how do we provision accounts, how do we create accounts outside of JumpCloud, and how do we automate the downstream integration with applications for single sign-on. This is a really exciting space because we're adding OpenID Connect integration. And what that does is it now allows you not only to integrate for single sign-on with SAML-based applications, but now also to integrate with your homegrown, home-built applications with OpenID Connect and with basically any application that supports OIDC. For identity federation, for single sign-on. We are, as always, significantly beefing up our SSO integration catalog. And as part of that, one of the areas that we are heavily investing in now is the identity management aspect of single sign-on. So not only the authentication action, not only logging a user onto a federated application, but the ability to integrate through SCIM with more and more environment. We're roughly tripling the identity management catalog within Q4. That is a very interesting area that we're investing in. Expect to see roughly somewhere between 60 to 70 new SCIM connector SCIM provisioning integrations that will pop up within Q4, and you'll see that investment continue into 2023. We want to make it such that any SSO application that you integrate with will have the ability to create accounts, both with just-in-time when that's available, and to provide full-blown identity management and single sign-on. Expect within the next quarter or so to also have the ability to export identities via our generic custom REST API integration, which basically means that this will now allow you to integrate and export identities into more environments beyond those that support SAML and OpenID Connect and the standards-based integrations. Now you can use JumpCloud in a much broader way to provision identities truly anywhere. And I believe with that, I will hand it over to Greg.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much, Eric, as we talk through all the amazing stuff that's happening through identities, auth, everything in between. And so now we'll transition into the devices that are right in front of us or someone else's server closet. Hand it over to Greg.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so Greg Armanini, happy to be here chatting today. We've got a few highlights to cover. There's definitely a ton of things happening in devices land. Won't cover them all today, but of course, if you have questions, you should absolutely ask them if you don't see something, and we're going to be happy to follow up. So let's get cracking. So first up, so this is a bit of work in progress. So what we got to in Q3 is to get Remote Assist into early access. And for those of you who weren't aware, what Remote Assist is a way to help your employees troubleshoot or fix issues on their machines. This is working today for Mac and Windows. It's coming to Linux. And our first use case is a live assist mode. And what that really means is, a user can, through your ticketing system, ask for help. And if their device is online, which you see at the top illustration, you can start a remote assist session. That generates a session key that you would provide the end user. Therefore, it's an opt-in flow, and then you go and have a screen sharing session. Really powerful tool, covers all of the use cases because you can go in, you can do some training, you can go manage some apps, you can get into the command line, you can do whatever you need to do. The user, of course, has control. They can grant you access to drive the machine or revoke it. And it, of course, works multi-monitor. You can do copy and paste between machines. And it, of course, has audit logging in DI. One other thing that I want to point out that a lot of folks ask is, well, okay, how does it get on the machine? It is distributed by the JumpCloud agent, but it works independently of it. So, in a worst case scenario, when you actually want to troubleshoot the agent or something on the management profiles, you can actually do that from the Remote Assist app. So it's a good fail-safe solution. Pretty exciting. We are going to have it GA very shortly. So, look for that. I want to point out it is free for everybody. So it's an amazing feature, incredibly powerful. You're going to see us talk a lot more about this in the near future. We're going to add silent modes and a lot of other RMM style capabilities over time into 2023. So definitely check it out. We're really amazed by the feedback we've gotten so far. So looking forward to getting that and getting even more feedback. Okay, next up, Chase. So patch management, you all know that shipped earlier in the year. We've been focusing on OS patch for Mac, Windows, and Linux. We are currently doing internal testing on browser patch, and we're going to have that become available here very shortly. So for those of you already using our patch management solution, it will be included in that. It'll just be added on. Oops. There we go. All right. Chase, holler if the screen's still blanked. Are we good?
Nope, it should be good.
Okay. So what we're introducing with browser patch is the concept of a universal policy. So think about it like this. You want to add a Chrome patch policy. You basically will say, here's what I want to do. I want to automatically download a Chrome patch when it's available. I want to then force notify a user that we're going to make them restart it. So we've added enforcement. You set that up once and it'll work across all OSs. So we're really saving you a lot of effort. If you remember the ongoing theme, Eric's already talked about it. We're really focused on automation and making this as much as possible one-click payoffs. So we're starting with Chrome. We're going to have Edge and Firefox shortly thereafter. And just as a reminder, Safari is handled at the OS level by our friends at Apple. So everything will be covered. And there are some other things we'll be doing. So just think about it if you're looking at like Google Chrome Enterprise configs, things like that. We'll be looking at those and helping you tune select ones in that policy as well. So it'll be a very powerful tool for you to take advantage of. Next up, sir. Okay, fall releases. So we all know that right about now, our friends at Apple are about to do their major OS upgrades. macOS 13 in particular has been, in the waiting queue. We're expecting it in the second half of of October. And this is going to be something that is a day zero support item for us. We are essentially doing what we would do every year, which is testing the system, making sure there's no gotchas, making sure that we've got the delay and block policies in place as a first and foremost concern, making sure we're adding new capabilities that match things that Apple announced at WWDC this year. So everything's looking good there. You should expect us to have day zero support. We'll have webinars and how-to guides and what to do as usual, so you can look forward to that. Now, I do want to make a public service announcement. Major releases are called day zero for a reason. We're hyper paranoid and we've been testing. We have uncovered an issue in Monterey that is acknowledged by Apple, and they are issuing a patch. It's going to be 12.6.1. And we're expecting it. It should be this week. It's not out yet, I don't think. But what it's doing is it's solving a problem with the upgrade process. They've rejiggered their major OS upgrades for Ventura, and the net of it is that to Monterey machines, Ventura doesn't look like a major update. It looks like a minor update. So if you think about the implication on patch, and blocking policies, that's something we have to contend with. So Apple's issued a fix. So if you upgrade in time, you don't have to worry about it. Business goes on as usual. But if you're not, we've got you guys covered. We're doing extra work on our block and our delay policies to make sure that you won't be affected, meaning you won't see an upgrade to Ventura if you're not ready. We'll also be doing some more work in Q4 to improve the overall process with upgrades with respect to Apple. So we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks and months. So expect more communications from us on this topic. Expect some community posts here shortly to remind you to upgrade to 12.6.1. And of course, we'll be talking later about how to do that and some of the other improvements we're making so that this doesn't happen again in the future. So all good. So I'd call it making lemonade out of lemons here. All right, next up. All right, so on to policy. So you may recall we spend a lot of time in 2022 adding support for different domain join types with the agent, and also enhancing our really core set of policies. Most, if not all of you, are using FDE policies and a few other policies. So we've really been listening to you and adding improvements. And in particular, we focused a lot on BitLocker. So, we've been working towards a roadmap to really flesh it out and make it best of breed. We, in the last quarter, improved the status reporting and making sure that for instance, if the TPM modules there aren't enabled. So we've really enhanced the visibility. That's all shipped. So checkbox, we've moved another column and checked it off. All fixed disks is the next big one. As you all know, today we do essentially your C drive. A lot of you have multiple drives. We are just about actually to release encrypt all fixed local drives. So it's a huge, huge upgrade of the policy. There's a new checkbox in there that says, do you want to encrypt them all? So it's really simple, very easy, very powerful. We'll be doing more to do like reset and troubleshooting for TPM, and eventually we'll add even more advanced configurations. But in Q4, you can see we're going to check off another column here. I think once we get to this point, you'll be pretty stoked with the overall capabilities on BitLocker. Next up. Okay, other policy enhancements. In general, I'll say that for 2022, we've been really going deep across all the OSs to improve the capability set. No exception is Apple and Linux. There's a handful of new policies we plan on adding in Q4. We've added about, I'd say, 16 policies in the end of Q2 to Q3 already. So we've got 4 more, including enterprise and JumpCloud Wi-Fi policies. That's kind of cool stuff. Again, these apply to all Apple OSs, so it's not exclusive. We're just going to continue improving the capabilities. On Linux, we're also doing a lot of security hardening. We've added a bunch in Q2. We've got 3 more queued up for Q4. Forbidden services policy is already available, so secure boot and more compliance settings is coming. And we're really going to be focusing as an end game on making sure you have a best in breed, we'll call it policy set or policy group for security. And we're pretty excited about the progress we're making. Next up. All right, policy sets, EDR, XDR ecosystem. A lot of effort, and you've heard probably about this in the news, is being spent working with leading vendors. And our goal, right, is to provide you a better together experience. So for instance, if you already have SentinelOne, we have commands and some policies to allow you to easily, out of the box, lay down that agent on your machines. And we're continuing to work with SentinelOne and other vendors to make sure that is always going to be the case. So we always want feedback from you about which other vendors you want us to support. We'll definitely look at that. We've also spent a lot of time working with CrowdStrike this year. So auto deploy on Mac and Windows, for instance, of the Falcon agent, as well as some PPPC policies, things like that to make it more seamless. That's all happened. But it doesn't stop there, at least in the case of CrowdStrike. We're really thinking about shared signals, meaning from the Falcon console, if you want to use CrowdStrike to lay down the JumpCloud agent, you can do that. So we've done that integration with CrowdStrike, and we're going to be working more and more and more to integrate with their features. So zero trust scoring, Spotlight integration for CVE vulnerabilities with our patch management solution. So we're definitely linking them together, and we're very excited. I will say we've been really excited about the feedback we've gotten both from the industry and our customers. And CrowdStrike has been a great partner. You may have noticed at Falcon, which is their annual show that happened a couple weeks ago in Vegas, that JumpCloud was actually announced as their partner of the year, one of a few. But we're really excited both for the recognition of the work that we've done together and the momentum we have in the industry with them. Next up. Okay. Linux OS. So we love Linux and we have it as a first-class citizen. I know on occasion folks are like, hey, what's the next OS to come out? Help me, help me, help me. We've got 3 more coming out. We've got another Fedora version, Pop OS finally, and Arch Linux. Arch Linux is probably going to bleed into January, but 3 new OSs, so we're always thinking about staying current as much as possible, having day 0 support for the critical OSs. So really excited to see continued momentum here. Now, on to some big stuff. So we have teams right now working on a couple big agenda items in the devices team. So one, Android EMM. This is, Android Enterprise at its finest. We are working currently to deliver on a core certifiable solution. This again is going to go through Google's modern AM API framework. So when it comes out, it'll be fully certified by Google, so you can rest assured that it's going to have all the core capabilities that you need to run your enterprise. So everything from covering both the BYO and the COD work profile use cases, so that's where we're starting. And then we'll have all of the required commands you need to secure your devices, so security commands, the obvious, passcode policies, the things you need. And then, we'll use that to also drive compliance and also get apps on your devices. So it's going to be really 3 major chunks of functionality. It'll be integrated directly with Google, so you'll be able to manage your apps and your integration from the JumpCloud admin console. It'll be pretty exciting. So imagine that in 2023 you'll be able to have a really solid end-to-end mobility story for both Apple and Google, and we'll have you covered for any scenario. So we're really excited about this. Next up, Windows. So this is the next big project. So what we're focusing on is making sure that we can help you deliver an easier onboarding experience. Under the covers, there are prescribed ways to do that. In Windows land, it's a little more complicated than Apple land for sure. And so we're providing you several options in the upcoming future. There are, of course, and we'll talk more about this as we get closer, there are, of course, existing ways to stage, image, etc. We have ways we can help you onboard if you don't want to go down the path I'm about to describe, with PPKG files and imaging or with other vendors. So we'll talk more about that. That's one path we'll talk about. But the path I want to talk about today is the path if you want to do an Ubi Flow, which is essentially a brand new machine. The end user boots it up and configures Windows. They are able to authenticate with JumpCloud and then go to enrollment, all within the Ubi Flow. They arrive in Windows and the device is managed. The JumpCloud agent is on the device. So for those of you familiar with MDM, sounds like MDM? Yes, it is. If you're a little confused, does that mean that we're going to change our strategy? No, it doesn't. We view that agent-based management and MDM-based management coexist nicely. There are use cases for each. Frankly, agent-based management is much better in some scenarios than MDM-based channel. So we're going to keep it together as a symbiotic solution, just like we have with Apple. And we're going to solve the cases where we see points of friction to help you. So looking at Ubi Flows first, obviously if we're doing Ubi, that means we're doing federation, so we can tie into Azure AD and handle the federation, again, as part of the Open Directory. And then lastly, this is more of a minor detail, if you have a computer already that the user's provisioned and you want to join the new management, you'll be able to do an add work account as an example through settings. So all the traditional ways you would expect to onboard to JumpCloud, you can do. And in the process, it'll simplify how you would get agent on the device. Think about no more connect key, all of those things. So all good news here. We'll integrate it also in our portal. So if the user authenticates to our portal and they just want to say enroll, we can do that through the native MDM client on the Windows machine and automatically pull down the JumpCloud agent. So a lot of good stuff happening here. I just want to clarify that both Android and Windows are bigger projects. They're actively in development. Realistically, you shouldn't expect to see a lot in terms of public facing EAs, things like that in Q4. We're doing our best to get there. So this is work that can bleed out into early next year for sure. Okay, that I think is it for me. And Sundar, are you ready to go, sir?
Thank you, Greg. Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Those are tough acts to follow. As you can see, device management, auth, MFA, SSO, lots of interesting stuff coming. So let's spend some time talking about data services. So my name is Sundar Jayashekhar. I lead the data services product team, and we have quite a few things coming in Q4. Before we get started, what is data services really responsible for? So we're responsible for maximizing the data we generate within the JumpCloud ecosystem and provide you all events, insights, and everything that goes along with it. If you've used directory insights or system insights, or if you're wondering where do the dashboards when you log in on the homepage come from, or if you've downloaded the numerous reports that we have, those are all data services. So we will continue to listen to what you need, and we will iterate and deliver. Next slide, please. So one of the most exciting things happening in Q4 is a brand new service called Cloud Insights. So this is a cloud observability and monitoring service. We are launching Cloud Insights for AWS initially. We are actually in customer beta as we speak, and we're going early access as of next Monday. So it's coming, it's right around the corner. One of the things that customers requested for us is, when they're doing compliance audits, or when they're doing operations or data forensics around, let's say, what is an employee X doing with the accesses they have? Today we have lots of insights into what are they doing on their devices, a lot of insights into what are they doing when they log into Ldap to on-prem servers, and we also have a lot of insights into SSO applications and even the radius, which Wi-Fi network or VPN they're logging into. What they didn't have is, if somebody SSOs into a public cloud infrastructure, let's say AWS, they are currently blind to what they're doing inside the public cloud infrastructure through that SSO access. And that's really all that we're trying to provide with Cloud Insights. Today you can answer questions like, hey, what is user X? What resources are they accessing on AWS? What are the actions they're taking? All of those questions is what Cloud Insights helps you answer. It's a visibility and observability product. The ultimate goal of this product is to help you all reach what's called the principle of least privilege. And the way to reach there is to first audit who's accessing what and take the necessary steps based on those audits. We've made it incredibly easy to use this. You don't have to go build your own systems, ingest all the cloud native logs. Through just a few clicks, you'll be up and running, and the Cloud Insights will also provide you to weed out the noise. What is noise here? If you look at CloudTrail logs in AWS, they give you data plane events. It gives you management plane events. What's more interesting as far as identity and access management and security is the management plane events, not the data plane events. We filter that out for you right out of the bat. You don't have to worry about it. 90 to 95% of all the logs coming in through CloudTrail, for example, are data plane events, which are completely noise when you look at it from an operations and security perspective. We also do another thing that's incredibly useful that you don't have to do is we filter out person entry events, access events from non-person events. If you're interested more about what did Chase do within the cloud environment, what did a user Y do in the cloud environment, we already filter that for you. We give you the capability to filter out all the service-to-service communications, which in general are locked down and pretty secure. Obviously, you can, if you have multiple AWS accounts, you can upload. We give you an aggregated view of all that's happening across all of those accounts. And what you see here is a screenshot of what we have in beta today. Next slide, please. So what are some of the use cases for Cloud Insights? It helps you with compliance, faster evidence gathering for any of the audits that you may want. It actually empowers the IT admins to not only answer questions on who's accessing what laptops and servers, but also questions that they usually had to punt over to the engineering team or the DevOps team, especially during audits. Hey, what did this user also do in the cloud? They can answer that question. They're empowered to answer that question. And then we're super excited about empowering the IT admins to have visibility in terms of identity and access into the public cloud infrastructure. Security monitoring. If you want to do forensics about, hey, this person left the company, but we may not have revoked all their accesses. Maybe the access to the cloud was not revoked because it sits with some other team. You can audit those things right then and there using Cloud Insights. It helps with day-to-day monitoring and IT ops, and also troubleshooting. Is somebody overprivileged or underprivileged? When they come to you with, hey, I cannot access such and such a resource, it really helps with all of those use cases. Next slide, please. Again, just recapping some of the key features. It supports multiple AWS accounts for monitoring activity across, especially for larger organization. It gives you a single pane of glass for managing, management events with details, with a hyper focus on user actions. And we're providing the same kind of filtering that you have today with Directory Insights. We allow you to filter, we'll allow you to have saved views. We're also going one step further and giving you the ability to alert yourself on specific actions. All of that is coming. It's not there right now with customer beta, but the time we go GA, which is around early November, you will have all of these capabilities. Another thing that I didn't mention is when you have a user accessing your public cloud infrastructure, it's very critical to know, are they coming in through an SSO connector or are they coming through an IAM connector? Are they even in my directory service? If you have a corporate policy of all your employees, if you have a corporate policy that says, look, any access to anything within my company, the user has to be part of my directory service, you can audit that. You can very easily tell if that user is in your directory service or if they're coming from somewhere else. It might be okay to come from a third-party identity provider. It might be okay if they're just configured in AWS as a user. For some companies, that's okay for users to be all over the place. For most companies, I'm assuming it is not, right, for centralization and control. And you can easily, very quickly audit that using Cloud Insights. Again, focus matters. Like I said, we filter out the data plane events from management events, and we also allow you with a checkbox to filter out non-person entity events as well. Next slide, please. Okay, switching context here, JumpCloud Reports. The reporting service is something we launched a couple of quarters ago, and we promised you that we'll keep adding new reports from the list of report requests that we get either through the product board or through customer conversations. Happy to announce that in Q3 we delivered one new filtering, one new capability within the reporting service, which is really stored report queue. And we also provided one additional new report, which is the users to SSO report, which essentially provides you a list of all users and the SSO, the applications to which they have SSO access to. Incredibly important for auditing purposes and also figuring out if people are using those SSO connectors to get into those applications. The stored report queue is allows you the ability to have two things, right? One is when you can now actually download multiple reports at the same time. It gives you a progress bar of which ones are downloading, which ones are completed. But also, going back in time, let's say past 7 days, if you've downloaded reports, all of those reports are quickly accessible to you. Actually, we can go to the next slide, Chase. I might have. Yeah, I mean, what you see on the top side here is really the stored report queue, which is the reports that you've downloaded in the recent past. And instead of downloading it again, you can just go access it right then and there. That's the functionality that we built into the reporting service, and this is available for all the reports that we have today. Next slide, please. So Q3 delivered, we talked about users to SSO report. If you want to get more details of what the additional attributes are in this, those are available. You can export this in JSON or CSV as well if you want to do offline analysis as well. Next slide, please. So what's coming in Q4? OS patch management status report, incredibly important. OS patch management was an amazing feature that Greg's team, device management, launched. We're piggybacking off of that and providing additional data points to understand, hey, given a particular device, is it in policy or not? And we also give you if it's a success or a failure, and if it's a failure, why is the reason? What's the reason for the device not being in compliance with OS patch management policies? Right? Is the device offline? Does it require a reboot, or is it successfully applied? Incredibly important to audit all of your devices and see if they're in compliance or not. So this is coming in early Q4. This is work that we already started in Q3. We couldn't meet the Q3 timeline, but it's coming out in a couple of weeks. Along the same lines of OS patch management is also the browser patch management. Again, you can set up policies and you'll know which ones are in compliance or not. This is something that customers have asked for. It is top of mind and it's coming in Q4 as well. So with the launch of these two reports, we'll have effectively 7 different reports that you can download and use for whatever purposes. There are multiple applications for reports. And I promise to you continues to add more and more reports in time. So keep those requests coming. What else do you want to see in the reports pipeline? More requests come, the merrier, right? Yeah, I think we'll be good on this slide. So moving on to the next one, Directory Insights. So we have some exciting new upgrades. Directory Insights is probably one of the first data services products that we've launched. This was before my time. It has an incredible adoption, 5 billion events that we generate every month across all our customer base, a lot of events. Essentially what Directory Insights is, it provides insights into events of anything of significance that's happening within the JumpCloud ecosystem. You know, for example, SSO login. You know, we talked about the automated group memberships that Eric talked about, right? Anytime there is a suggestion made or actually we actually move the memberships based on some intelligence that we have in the background, we have to provide you events of that to let you know that there's such a thing happened. So that's what Directory Insights is all about. If a software was downloaded into a laptop, then we want to provide you events based off that download. That's essentially what Directory Insights does. Let's look at what some of the upgrades coming to those that services. Next slide, please. So 2 things. These are, the first one is an improvement to what we have, better event descriptions. So if you go and look at a Directory Insight object today, there are 2 things. One is an English description of what the event is all about. You know, today we're lacking in details, or in other words, there's a lot more information in the JSON that we can bubble up to the English description, the description that each event provides. We are definitely doing that. This will actually reduce the need for IT admins to go kind of muck around with the JSON objects to get additional details. We will surface as much details as possible so that you don't have to go to the JSON. Obviously, we can't surface all of the details for additional stuff. You can always go to the JSON to get additional information. We're also bringing in consistency across all the fields and columns that we actually display in the UI. And we're doing this in a couple of different ways. We're mandating certain fields, especially with the visibility turned on, and also we're unifying the directory event schema across all of the events. I'm incredibly excited about the search bar. You know, it gives you a quick access to events, especially if you're we saw 5 billion events per month. If you're one of the larger customers, you generate a lot of events. We're just making it easy for you all to get to the event. Get to the event that you really care about, either to answer a quick audit question, or if you're doing some data forensics, the search bar will be incredibly useful. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's it from data services. Over to you, Jace.
All right, perfect. Well, as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on that we're trying to get out into your hands within the JumpCloud organization. And there's a lot. So if you need some help, we also have a team of JumpCloud experts standing by to help, implement hands-on keyboards, whatever that might be, kind of pull in all of these amazing features, just as a reminder, as you start to play with all the things that are starting to come out. So with that, we're actually going to transition into, we're going to launch a quick poll. And so as we get that started, also, if you haven't yet, please feel free to throw those questions into the chat, and we will start sending some of those here shortly. Here we go. And as we do that, I also want to be conscious of time. There's so many features coming out that we didn't leave too much. So, but fear not, throw your questions in there and we will be following it via email if we don't get to them live here, and then we can start to dive in. Okay, we're about set there. All right, perfect. So let's hop into the Q&A section. I'll go ahead and kill the slides. Let's get back into the fun. All right, so as you can imagine, some of the questions kind of came through as we started, so we'll kind of go by some of the questions. First question, kind of living in identity and auth, thinking about biometrics. And so when we're looking at that, first question for you, Eric, will biometrics be available for logging onto the computer that's also MFA enabled?
Yes, so that's an area we're definitely looking into. It most probably will not come in Q4. It most probably will be in the beginning of Q1, but definitely we want to allow both Windows Hello experiences and Touch ID, Face ID as a means of logging onto a device, which would then be carried on to other IT resources.
Perfect. All right, and the next kind of thinking about identities coming in and out of the organization, plans for UKG or UtiliPro as kind of another HR source in addition to ADP and others that we've listed.
Yeah, so we've curated a list of the top used HR environments. UKG is one of them. We're looking at a long list of next pre-built integrations. I think through some of the custom API integration options, you may be able to already do that today. We need to look into that, but definitely UKG is on the list.
Perfect. Okay, so then several questions in terms of how we're thinking about remote assist. First question in there, Greg, is what about unattended access? And so maybe just kind of give us a sense of where this will be evolving to in the future.
Yeah, so we're already working on that feature. We're just spinning up. So the plan was always to start with Live Assist because it's a catch-all. We are going to introduce what we call a silent assist mode next, and that is going to bleed over into the beginning of 2023. So that what you think of as unattended mode, essentially, having a virtual command line to just go and access a computer without the user knowing, that's most definitely in our plans. It's currently part of this free packaging. So just know that, you'll be able to use both of them free in perpetuity. And so we're really looking forward to getting that to the market.
Perfect. And the next question, we kind of think about it sometimes in a one-to-one session, but will multiple technicians be able to hop into a remote assist session, or is it kind of limited to that one at a time?
So we have the capability to extend it. So the framework will allow it. We're debating internally whether we want to open that up for security. So that's top of mind for us, is making sure that there's full auditability. There is RBAC for which type of admins even can use the platform. We care deeply about that as a foremost concern. That being said, we welcome more feedback from customers in the community to let us know how important that type of feature is.
Okay, perfect. And we actually had two questions of the same thing, and so I will combine them here, but in thinking about browser patching. So we'll be supporting Chrome, Firefox, Edge. Safari is handled by our friends at Apple. But what about Chrome-based browsers like Brave?
Well, to the extent that we're getting feedback from our customers that that's important, we will definitely look at it. I will tell you that It's a lot easier to support Edge now that it's Chromium based. So, you know, I can't say officially that we have other Chromium based browsers on the roadmap, but, you know, with enough feedback and support, absolutely, we'll look at more and more browsers.
Okay, perfect. All right, so running through, I know we are basically at time, so we'll probably just do 1 or 2 more questions real quick. Sundar, I know that you are also having to run here, but one quick question just in terms of Cloud Insights. We know we're thinking about AWS, but what about kind of Google Cloud or other, you know, public infrastructures as we start to think about those?
Yeah, no, great question. I probably should have given some kind of address this. So GCP is coming next, right? So obviously one of the things that we've heard is there are people in a multi-cloud strategy is very popular today. You know, nobody wants to be locked down to any one particular vendor when it comes to public cloud substrates. So our next big shiny object within Cloud Insights would definitely be GCP. But before we get to GCP, we want to beef up the features for Cloud Insights AWS first and tackle GCP soon after. So I don't have any timelines, but we're expecting, probably my guesstimate would be second half of next year is when we'll take up GCP as the project. Multi-cloud is definitely the story with the cloud side. I got to run, Chase, but thanks a lot. I'm happy to take the questions offline as well and get back to the, thanks.
Yep, absolutely. And so I guess I just wanted to call that out. Thank you everyone for joining us today on today's webinar. We can keep it open just for another minute or two. So if you have questions, please throw those in. We'll be answering all of those in terms of email follow-up and taking them there. We announced a lot of cool stuff coming out, especially kind of in early access and other pieces. So if you'd like to be involved, reach out to your account manager if you haven't already. Just drop your name in the chat. We can follow up there just to make sure that you have all the fun stuff coming to your fingertips. Thank you again for joining us today for our Q4 Roadmap webinar and beyond. And we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Have a great rest of the afternoon.
Please subscribe and check out more content from us.